Everybody, my name is Mir. I'm the host of the More We Know podcast for the Gen Zs and Millennials. I know I say that. I say it's for the Gen Zs and Millennials. And yeah, although that is the focus, this podcast is really for anyone. But I look back at my time in college and I wish I had something like this. I wish I had a podcast where I could learn from mentors or experts in their industries or, fellow Gen Zs that are talking about real world topics, that are talking about what is a credit card APR, what is investing, what does all this mean? What's up, everybody? My name is Mir. I'm the host of the More We Know podcast for the Gen Zs and Millennials. Today, we got PJ Mastracchio, who's the CEO and co-founder of At Your Gate, which is an airport food delivery app. They've recently raised over $400,000 on WeFunder. They've raised almost $6 million plus total. And this app is really cool because what At Your Gate does is you can go to the airport, right? And you can actually order your food and it comes literally to your gate. When you're arriving, when you're on your way to the airport, whatever it is, it delivers the food to your gate. And it's really cool. They have a lot in store. It's really essentially Uber for airports. And PJ has a phenomenal story from growing up, from not graduating college, from becoming a top sales guy to starting his own business to getting acquired. PJ gives us an authentic, genuine look at that entrepreneurial life. And he's just so authentic. And that's what I appreciated about this podcast. So if you like this episode, if you enjoyed watching me interview PJ, make sure to follow me. Make sure to follow my personal Instagram. Make sure to follow the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcast. And follow PJ in the At Your Gate journey. One thing to note is they are raising money right now, which is on WeFunder. You can go to the WeFunder/@YourGate and you can see a little bit more about what they got going on, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the More We Know podcast with your host and social media influencer, Mir. Gen Zs and Millennials.
Welcome back. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. I'm your host, Mir. Today we got an exceptional guest who's actually a friend of mine now as well, by the name of PJ Mastracchio, who is the CEO and co-founder of At Your Gate. He's been featured in Forbes, in Fast Company, the New York Times, LA Times, The Today Show, USA Today, TechCrunch. He's on so many things. He's a true stud. He's a legend. He went to Kentucky. It's such an honor to have him on here. And PJ, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Mir. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you again, man.
It's great to see you. Yeah, the people don't really know, but we had a couple issues with audio going back and forth, and everything happens for a reason, right?
Exactly. We get to do a retake on a podcast. I couldn't be happier. Really enjoyed it. Should be fun.
So where are you based out of now?
I'm in Miami Beach currently. We moved 14 times since the start of the company. So it started in Laguna Beach, a little stint in Palm Springs, up to Silicon Valley, down to Venice Beach. Then back to San Diego, actually back to Laguna, then San Diego, then moved on a day's notice to New Jersey and lived there for about a year and a half, and then moved down to the Florida Keys, and now I'm in Miami Beach. So catch me if you can.
Miami Beach. Love that.
Yeah,
so
not too bad.
Yeah, right. So the way the podcast works is it's called The More We Know. There's a lot of people that Gen Zs and Millennials specifically that are just trying to get more information and have mentors. And I've been blessed to have so many mentors in my life that have helped me through my success so far. But a lot of people don't have that. So that's why we bring experts on the show, like people like you that have that success and credibility and that can help guide people in different ways. So, we want to talk about At Your Gate because that is an awesome app and it's blowing up. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But before, PJ, can you walk us through where you're from? What's your childhood like? What did your parents do for a living? Just walk us through that story.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in New York City. I lived there for a bit. My parents moved to New Jersey when I was a little kid. My dad went to Holy Cross College up in Worcester, Mass. He was an All-American football player. Like me, wasn't a very big guy, and he was a lineman, but he was a badass. And went to work for Hoffman LaRoche. Was in the healthcare industry and is still working in the healthcare industry about 50 years later. So he's my old man's one of my, he's obviously my favorite person in the world. It's my dad, but he's been a great mentor to me. And he's, my dad taught me to choose, not settle in life. Right. And so that's a lesson I learned very early. He also told me be a leader, not a follower. And so those two things I learned very, very young. I had a little plaque in my room that said that. So my dad was awesome, not overbearing. And my mom went to Mount St. Vincent College in the Bronx. She's from Queens, New York, and they met in Bermuda on spring break, which is kind of cool. And my parents were awesome. They were very supportive. I have two younger sisters who both have kids now, and so I have 6 nieces and nephews in the family. And it's a really cool upbringing. I think the most important part of my upbringing was the high school I went to. I went to a high school called Seton Hall Prep, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I'm surprised I got in. It's a very, very good academic school, but the friends that I made and the bonds that I formed there, I still communicate on a weekly basis with probably 60 guys I graduated with, and a bunch of them work for us now. So it's really kind of cool. And that high school was an all boys school, played football and ran indoor and outdoor track there. And it was the best thing I ever did. Like I said, the friends I made and the lessons I learned there, both as a student athlete as well as being accountable for yourself and being a man. And that led me to my college choice. I went to the University of Kentucky, as you mentioned, and I wanted to play football in college, and I'm only 5'7". Not a lot of 5'7" Division I athletes, but I figured why not? And so I went on a visit there, and I absolutely fell in love with Lexington, Kentucky. I fell in love with the people. I'm a New Yorker, so I wasn't used to people smiling and being nice. I kept thinking, what does this person want from me? So, but the funny thing was, I went to Lexington, fell in love with it, and came back to my high school. I was all excited to tell my high school coach that I decided to go to Kentucky, and I told him, I said, I've figured out where I'm going to play football next. And he said, great, where? And I said, the University of Kentucky. And the fool started laughing at me. And I was like, wait. He's like, there's no way you're going to play there. Go somewhere small, be a big fish in a small pond. And I don't know if that was the first time in my life that someone told me I couldn't do something that I really felt like I could do. But I said, you know what? Screw you, man. I'm going to Kentucky. So I picked my college out of spite, to be honest with you. Like Larry David built a spite store. I kind of picked a spite college. And I walked on there, and a man by the name of Bill Curry was a coach. It was actually his birthday yesterday. It's 30 years I've known him now. Bill Curry had just come from Alabama, and he was a very, very well-known coach, played in the NFL for Vince Lombardi and Don Shula, and his quarterbacks were Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas, and he was a center. So he played with some all Hall of Fame, minds and players. And so, coach believed in me when I got to campus, and the players believed in me. And man, I had a blast playing there, and I actually, earned a letter and played against Tennessee and Mississippi State, Florida, and all these big schools, and got on the field. And it was awesome. And, it was a lesson in life, I think, very early for me, that there's nothing I can't do if I don't put my mind to it. And a lot of people say, oh, that's hokey and stuff. But trust me, it's true. If you really, look, I can't jump off this building and land on my feet and run away, but it's not something a normal person can do. Anybody can put, if you put your mind to something, I always felt like you could do it, especially if you work hard, and you need help. Football is a great sport for business because you got to work as a team, right? You're on offense, all 11 guys got to do their job. If one guy messes up, you're going to get tackled in the backfield, right? So it's a very, very important thing. And the other thing football teaches you is about diversity. A huddle in the football is, my coach used to talk about the huddle, how diverse a huddle is. You got people from all different backgrounds and socioeconomic. You got Black, you got white, you got Mexican, you got all different races in the huddle. But at the end of the day, you're holding hands with those guys. You're lining up next to those guys, and you're working together. And I think that's the key to success in any great company, is build a great team, work hard, and move forward. But that whole Kentucky stint, man, kind of set my tone for my life, that when I entered the business world, I was ready for battle, because I knew if I could do that down there, that nothing in front of me was going to scare me.
Yeah, that's such a great introduction and upbringing, and the motivation from your dad and sports. And I think a lot of people attribute that, I feel like sports it plays such a big part in the business world, because like you said, everything you do in sports applies to the business world, and almost goes as far as, taking losses and moving forward, or having mental toughness, or not being soft. That goes with sales and soft skills and just so many things. So that's
Yep.
great insight. So, you ended up playing football. What about your degree? What'd you get your degree in at Kentucky?
I have what they call an NFD, no friggin' degree. So I didn't finish college. I was blessed with a child my freshman year. Wasn't planned, obviously, but it was my girlfriend from high school, and wound up getting married to her. But we had a son in 1991. I tried to stay in school, probably selfishly now that I look back, because I really wanted to play football, and I was close to making the travel team, which is what you go to Kentucky for. You don't go to watch practice all week and watch the damn games. And so I knew that if I left without getting on the field, I would have had a hole in my life, because that wasn't my goal at the time, was to play football in the SEC, right? So I was able to stay until the middle of my junior year. I wound up playing, and it was awesome. And I look back, but I dropped out of school in 1992, and thankfully my father continues to be successful. By the time his career kind of arced, and so my dad lived in a really nice new neighborhood. He built a really big house, and one of his neighbors owned a company that distributed vending machines and video games and pool tables. Pretty much anything you could stick a coin in, they sold and operated. And the guy hired me at $7 an hour to work in the warehouse unloading trucks. And so my big job out of college was wearing my Kentucky football sweats and taking 60 Street Fighters off a truck, in 2 hours and then loading them back on the truck to go out for unboxing and loading them out. So I did that job for about a week, and the owner, who was Tony, my boss's dad, came in and fired me. And I said, what the hell, man? I worked through lunch. And Tony, his son, came in and said, Dad, what are you doing? This is Joe's kid. He's a good boy. He's a good background, Seton Hall prep, Kentucky. His father said, now he's a cop. He's an undercover cop. I guess the company wasn't always on the up and up to stay. And so he explained to his father I wasn't a cop. And his father looked me dead in the eye and he said, you're going to be a salesman one day and you're going to make $40,000 a year. And I said, who do I have to kill to make 40 grand? And so they promoted me up into the parts department, where I shipped flipper coils and all kinds of stuff for pinball machines and joysticks. I packed and shipped parts, but I wanted to be a salesman. And so my boss, Luigi Postiglione at the time, my Italian guy, he said, I heard you're going to be the new salesman. He's old guys. I didn't understand the business. That a 21-year-old kid rolls in, thinks the shit does this thing. These guys have been grinding at this thing for 10, 15 years. So my first lesson in life was when I got done with my new job in like 4 hours. The guy who had the job before me came back and said, you're not done yet. I said, I'm done, swept, everything's finished. He goes, this is an 8-hour job. And I was like, oh. So this guy sat back here and did something for 8 hours. It only took 4 hours to do, but the light bulb kind of went on in my head. And I was kind of like, I think I could advance myself in this company. And so I went up to my boss that day and I said, hey, give me the customer list. Let me start calling people and selling stuff that we have in here, joysticks, decals, whatever, anything that went into a video game, buttons, we sold. And so he, gave me an okay hot shot look and gave me this big green and white. Remember those big green and white printed sheets with the dots on the side? I don't even, probably too young to remember that crap. But he dropped like this 15-pound piece of paper on my desk and said, okay, hot shot, make some calls. So I did. And I don't remember the number, but at the end of the week, I came up to him and I handed him a stack of sales sheets. And he said, what the hell? He had his green visor on and he was doing the books for the week. And he said, what the hell is this? I said, there's sales I made this week. And I remember he looked up at me. He said, you better not be effing with me, kid. And I said, I swear to God, I sold these. So he went through the first 3 sales sheets and he looked up at Larry, the guy whose job I replaced. He said, it's your last day. So right there, I knew like, like I can do this. And so he put me at the parts counter and people would come in to buy stuff for their machines and vending machines, glasses break, stuff happens all the time. And so I started to know the customers, and the sales manager, this guy, Irv Spinak, he noticed me. Again, I'm 21 years old at the time. Everyone's 50 years old in this company and up. So I'm 30 years younger than everyone, but I'm also outworking all of them. And so they wound up bringing me in and saying, hey, you want to be a salesman? You want to go out on the road and sell? And so I went and borrowed a bunch of clothes from my dad. I remember wearing his shirts because I had like an 18-inch neck at the time. You know what I mean? I just came from playing football. I would eat a whole pizza at lunch because I had so much, I needed to eat. And so I was wearing my dad's shirts, and my dad's a pretty big guy, so they were ballooned out. I looked like a little kid in his dad's clothes. But I drove out to Nassau, Long Island, the furthest point. I was working in my office was in New Jersey at the time, and went to the phone book and looked up amusements and started calling people. And they were like, "What the hell? No one's ever come out here from your company." And legend was born. I'm not calling myself a legend, but the PJ legend was born. And I worked my way into Suffolk, which is the next county. And they wound up letting the Long Island sales guy go. And they gave me Long Island. Then they gave me Brooklyn. Then they gave me Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan, the Bronx. Then I got the whole Jersey Shore. So I spent every day of the week in my Toyota Camry. And then I had a Lexus 4-door. I was like 24 years old driving a black Lexus, right? Thought my shit didn't stink. And I was driving around to all these vending machine and video game companies and selling machines. And then in the summertime, I'd walk the boardwalks down the Jersey Shore from Keensburg to Cape May. And I'd literally go out in New York in like all black, like a gangster. And then I go down the shore in my loafers and my Docker shorts, and I got to kind of be a chameleon. But I learned how to sell, and along the way, I met a ton of really cool people in that business. And but it was fun, imagine being 24, 25 years old. I had 5 salespeople working for me in my office, and then I became the sales manager, and we had 60 salespeople across 5 offices, and I was 24, and I was in charge of all of them. And so I didn't really, I guess at the time, look back now, I'm kind of like, that's kind of nuts, but I just never thought it was something that shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? So I always kind of thought I should have been in that position. And I think a lot of times you blindly lead yourself, whether you're just cocksure and you think you can do everything or not. Sometimes you just lead yourself into a place and you kind of, I really never till now looked back and was like, oh my God, I was like firing adults and like managing P&Ls and, $40 million in revenue at like 20 something years old. So that was, out of college, that's how my career started. And then, in that business, there's a lot of really smart people, especially on the video game development side. And this is when Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter were, the rave in the mid 90s. And then, Tekken came out, and what was, Time Crisis, where you had to load, cocked the gun, and Jurassic Park, you sat in it. So I was flying around the country, setting up arcades in Vegas and doing the buying for Caesars, you know what I mean? Like ridiculous stuff. But I met a lot of smart people. And one of the guys I met, Chuck Morton, who's a dear friend. Like, I don't have any brothers, but he's one of them. He was on the video game manufacturing development side, and he had invented a few games. I don't know if you ever saw that soccer game called Kick It. There was a ball tethered, an actual ball tethered where you kick. He invented that game, but he had come from Glaxo in the healthcare industry to the video game industry. And he and I struck up a friendship, and he called me one day and said, "Hey man, I got a technology product in healthcare that I think you and I could start a company and sell to pharmaceutical companies." I was like, dude, I'm running around with the mobsters in New York and arcade owners down the shore
at this time.
25.
Okay.
Yeah, 25. I was like, yeah, 97. So it took about 6 months of him. He would call me when I was visiting a customer and like ask for me when he knew I was going to be there. He was very persistent, and he wound up flying in. At the time I had moved down to Bucks County, just outside Philadelphia. He wound up flying in, and I never forget this moment. He brought his projector. In 97, when you had a projector, you were somebody. Like, nobody had projectors. Now everybody's got one. And he came in, and I asked my dad, he said, "Dad, will you come over for dinner? We'll have some sushi, but Chuck's going to be in town, and I want you to meet this guy. And he has a product he says he can sell in healthcare. And I don't know anything about healthcare, but I'm pretty sure I can sell anything if you tell me how to sell it and what it is." And it was an interactive CD-ROM. And again, this is the late 90s, and AOL was sending these CDs out to everybody to install, right? AOL. And so our idea was, let's go to pharma companies and sell them these CDs that have all the information about your disease state. So you get diagnosed with high cholesterol, they're going to give you this CD when you get your prescription. You're going to plug it into your computer, and it's going to tell you all about what's going to go on. And then we're going to link it right to a website. So we called it auto launch. So at the end of the video or whatever we put on the disc, it opened up the AstraZeneca website. And I was like, I think we can sell this. So I moonlighted, as every entrepreneur does. You work your 9 to 5, and then you work from 5 to 9. And so I would go to work and do my job during the day. I was still selling, arcade games. And now I was in Philadelphia. I was really in a position where I could go to New York, go to the shore, go to Western Pennsylvania. But I had time, and my boss, Chris Vecchione, who I just spoke to 2 days ago. I love that I still have all these people in my life. He was my first boss. He's the guy who would walk by my office and say, "Look at this computer now, that one next to you. I want you at lunchtime, before work, after work," kind of thing. And so he kept me on the path, because I didn't want to get fired from my job and then have no income. And so I remember getting up in the morning at like 3 o'clock and going to my kitchen table and plugging in the phone line and that to go online, and did a bunch of research. And then we showed my dad the product. My dad said, "I think this is a gold mine." And so my dad started to introduce me. My last name, Mastracchio, is not Smith. You know what I mean? So in healthcare, when you have this last name, people assume that I'm related to my father. And so my dad opened a ton of doors just with our name. And I remember my dad set up a meeting at his company, and Chuck flew in. He lives in Louisville, and Chuck flew in, and we did a demo. And halfway through our demo, the guy who was the CEO of my dad's company stood up and started to walk out of the room. And I was like, I thought this was going really well. And he stood in the door when he turned around and he said to his CFO, "Acquire this company." We didn't even have a tax ID number yet, man. We just had a CD-ROM that showed something for AstraZeneca. It wasn't even a client. They wanted to buy our company. And I walked out and I was like, okay. So we started doing due diligence. And like, "All right, what's your tax ID number?" Like, "We don't have one." They're like, "Well, are you a C Corp?" We're like, "No, we don't." So right there we knew, oh my God, we got something really cool here. And so we ended up selling our first deal to Bristol Myers Squibb in 1998. And made enough money to quit my job. Like, it was our first deal, and I made I don't want to say how much, because I don't want to I'm not trying to brag, but we made a lot of money on our first deal. It was we sold a CD-ROM to Bristol Myers Squibb for HIV antibody education over in Belgium. Actually, we had to hire someone to do it in another language. But once you have a sold product, man, we go into other clients with this. We just did this for them. And again, back 22 years ago, no one got any data. This CD told me, the IP. I knew that you went to this website because I auto-linked you there. And so we started selling these programs. And coming from the video game industry, we started to sell, I hate the term, but edutainment. And so we sold the Cholesterol Classic to one of the companies, and it was a golf game for doctors to play at a convention. And in conventions, your job is to get people into your booth, right? Well, models work, tchotchkes work, video games work too, especially if you have a leaderboard here. Because now these doctors would play the game, and then they walk by and see someone beat them, they come play it again. So you're getting doctors going to the booth 3-4 times that they normally wouldn't even go. And so we kind of were a hit. The company was called Triax Media. And about 3-4 years into it, I guess, early 2000s, 9/11. So I moved to California in 2002. I realized I work for myself now. Why am I living on the East Coast? I was in New York 9/11, saw it happen, lost a bunch of friends, and said, what am I doing here? It was just a bad time to be on the East Coast. And I went out to a wedding in Laguna Beach, and I called my now ex-wife and I said, put a sign on the lawn, we're moving. And I did. A year later, moved to Southern California. And then that's when the biotech boom really started to happen. Genentech and Amgen and Allergan, and so I went after biotech pretty hard. And at the same time, we had this phenomenon in the video game business right before I left was like a time release character into a game. So there was a game called Tekken, and it was a kick punch fight arcade game. And once you beat the game, you didn't play it anymore, right? But what this game did is after 30 days, it would release a new boss and a new boss. So you'd have to beat this new character. Well, Chuck and I took that learning and said, well, what if we built that similar technology on this CD-ROM? And what if it can remind the patient at the time to refill their prescription? And so we built this thing called time release messaging. And now Chuck, Craig, and I own two US patents on time release messaging. And then we utilized that in the mid 2000s to build what we called at the time desktop apps. Now, this is before the iPhone app was a phenomenon. And so we would use the CD, and then it morphed into like a web key, a USB key. But we would use this now to start a time clock on the user's computer that would track back to their script date. So we knew when the patient needed to refill, it would release a message right to their desktop without a web connection. And then we started filming their doctor. So instead of you getting a printed message, you actually got a video from your doctor saying, hey, Samir, it's been 30 days since you started this treatment. I need you to get to the pharmacy and refill your prescription or come in to see me, right? And so now at conventions, we had doctors lining up to film these sessions, and we had makeup girls, and we had, like the USA, Good Morning US, Good Morning America kind of set. And so doctors were lining up to do this. They were writing more prescriptions, and we got the attention of a lot of big companies. And so in 2010, we were acquired, and I became a millionaire at 38 years old. And I was like, I always wanted to be a millionaire by 40. And it was great. The timing was great. The company that bought mine invented the copay card. So it's so you don't have to pay out of pocket for your prescription, and it works with your insurance. And so they used our technology, and their technology was kind of like peanut butter and jelly. It kind of came together and made something cool. And at 2010, when I sold my company, that's when, money aside, that's when I realized, like, whoa, I did it. Like, holy cow, that was a 19-year straight out of college, not a day off, balls to the wall job, and I was able to take a step back. And my son just got accepted to DePaul University. The guy I had, this little out of wedlock kid we had is brilliant, gets into one of the top universities in the Midwest, and I got to, I got to pay for college. And I told him, you get into school, I will handle it, buddy. That's my gift to you, is I will handle it. But I did tell him, if you decide 3 years in, this isn't for you, like I did, I'm going to hand you a bill. So his motivation was get out in 4 years. That's all I can afford. But he did great. Listen, he graduated cum laude, which is, cum laude more than I did. And so super proud of Tyler. And then, so he was able to go to college. And at the same time, my youngest, Christopher, was at 14 at the time. And he was like the stud athlete of the family. This kid could skate, he could snowboard, he could surf, he played football, he played lacrosse, he played guitar. He was amazing, and he is amazing, obviously. But, and so that was a really unique time. We were able to travel a ton. And, Samir, I knew in my heart when I sold the company and put some money in the bank that I was going to spend it, man. I knew I was going to do something else. And so I did. I mean, I did get a nice car, but nothing crazy. I got like an M6 BMW and got my kid a GTI. And my wife had a Suburban, and then we had a smart car just because we had a smart car. It's kind of stupid, but gas was like $6 a gallon, and you have a Suburban and an M6, you're not getting a lot of miles. And so I spent it, and I had fun. But most of the money I spent was on traveling, because I thought to myself, you can buy possessions, but at the end of the day, who are you buying them for? Watches, like, I get it. I'm not saying that. Just in my mind, I was like, I'd rather spend it on memories, because if I ever lose everything, which I wound up doing, I'll explain that in a minute, I still can go to bed at night and think of my kid and I snowboarding in Whistler, or climbing the steps in Positano, Italy, or eating sushi at midnight, just him and I, in Japan, right? And so all those things we did together were memories. And in 2012, I came across a life-changing moment. I was turning 40 years old, and all this money I had, and these things I had, and the ability to go everywhere. The one thing I didn't have was happiness. I was miserable. I was not happy in my marriage. my oldest was gone, my youngest was gone all the time doing stuff, and I wound up, and I'm not saying anything negative about my ex-wife. I had most to do with this marriage, but I wasn't happy, and I was like, man, I got all this stuff, and everyone's like, you've got all these things, and you're so great. And I pull in my driveway on Friday night, and I couldn't wait for Monday to leave, and I was not in a good place mentally, and I always felt like, man, everyone thinks I have all this stuff, and I do, but it doesn't make me happy. And I wasn't looking to meet anybody, but I wound up meeting Amy, and I fell completely in love with this woman, and I, within 2 months moved out, and was destroyed my family. It was really hard on them. My kids were devastated. My ex was devastated because nobody saw it coming. I wasn't a yeller, screamer, abuser. God forbid I never lifted my hand to a woman ever. You grow up with sisters, it's opposite. You beat someone's ass, they touch a woman. But, I was never that guy, but I was also avoiding being around because I wasn't happy. And so very selfish of me, but 8 years later, I'm still with Amy. She's in the other room and I'm completely in love with her. So it was the right choice. I know I met the right person. And, and so I guess for those out there listening, my biggest public failure is my marriage. But for the last 8 years, I've been the best boyfriend and soon fiance, and hopefully one day husband to her, because I learned all my mistakes. And I knew that if I could just be happy with someone, and I also learned not to be selfish. And I learned to give. That it feels way better to give than to get. And I found a person that would also deal with me. I'm not an easy guy to deal with, man. I'm all over the map. I sleep 4 hours a night. But she's changed me and made me a more loving and caring person, and has me putting other people first. And I think the reason that this company is on a path it's on is because the way I'm able to lead, because of what she's done for me by calming me and not making me all wild. And, and again, being happy, man, and being happy at home. I mean, you look at this lockdown, how many of my friends were calling me like, dude, I got to get out of this house. And we've been on self-isolation since the start of this damn company, so we do a lot together. And also having someone that does the same things you do. And we skateboard together, we snowboard together, we surf together, we eat the same foods, we travel all over. She loves to travel. So, my career, as we get to when At Your Gate started, I sold a company, stayed with that company for a number of years, and learned how to build $1 billion business from a guy who did it right in front of me, Bob Previty. And he was my mentor, still is my mentor. I love him to death. The guy is self-made as they come, and he's not flashy. He's almost self-deprecating sometimes. But he's a great dude, and he showed me how to build a business and to build a defensible business and build an enterprise, and that's what we've done. And so, as we go through my career, I don't know if you want me to get into At Your Gate now, but it's where we are as far as my career goes. But as I sold the company, I was traveling a lot, Samira, and I had the same problems everybody has in the airport, right? You get there at 6 a.m. and you want a coffee and the line's out the door, or you got 42 minutes like I had in Dallas 2 weeks ago, and you got to go from A to D. You don't even know if you're going to make the flight, so no time to eat, or you land at 10 at night and everything's closed and you got to get a rental car and drive an hour somewhere, right? And so I was sick of doing that, and I was living in Laguna Beach at the time. Amy and I had a house right on PCH, just off PCH, and walked everywhere. And I had this 7 Series BMW sitting in my driveway, and all I did was drive it to the airport and park, pay for it to park, and then drive it home. And then I walked to Whole Foods, I walked to the beach, I walked to all the stores. So in 2014, Uber came out, and I was in San Francisco, and I hit a button and got a car, and I was like, whoa. So I went home and did some real simple math and figured out a $1,500 a month car payment plus insurance plus gas. Or for like $600 a month, I could have a guy in a Chrysler 300 pick me up and drive me all over. So I got rid of my car, got rid of my driver's license, and 6-7 years later, I haven't driven a car. I got a state ID from the lovely state of Florida, and I don't drive anymore. And that's when this At Your Gate idea came to me, because I realized, wow, this on-demand economy is everywhere. I hit a button, get a car, hit a button, get a burger. So that's where the idea came from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we definitely want to get into At Your Gate, but there's a lot of things that I just want to recap here in a quick sense. So you went from, you left college, you got into a sales job, you don't know what you were making $7 an hour, you were on the bricks of getting fired, all this stuff. But one thing, I really want to touch on is you hit it at 38 years old. That was your second business you sold by that point?
That was the first one.
That was the first one. Okay.
Yeah, it's only when I started. I only had one business.
Okay, because I thought
I just segued out.
Okay, so the first one, that acquisition, you were just part of it. You weren't. It wasn't yours. That first acquisition.
So let me clarify. So Chuck and I started a company that we sold and became millionaires in 2010. We both stayed with that company for 3 years. I wound up buying the company back from them and regenerating the business by myself. And then when I started Trax, I sunset that. So it was technically one successful exit, but I'm one for one. I haven't started a company that I got rid of before.
Right. Okay. So you hit the entrepreneurial dream. You sold your business, you made millions of dollars, had millions in the bank. But with millions in the bank, why were you still like upset? Like where was the pain from? I think people need to understand that.
Because I realized, and I hate to say it sounds so cheesy, but money isn't everything. And I had a great lifestyle before that, right? I pretty much could do what I wanted. I worked for myself, and so it was just Chuck and I. We had no employees. All the developers were subcontracted, and so we owned the tech, but they did the work for us. And so we had a really solid business. But money doesn't create happiness. Honestly, I was living in San Clemente, California. Had a beautiful house. And spent a bunch of money in my backyard with a hardscape and a fire pit. And, sunken hot tubs and grills. All that stuff didn't make me happy. I wasn't happy in my personal life. And look, the one thing I have outside, my boys and family is my friends. I've got friends for 35 years, man. Some of them still work with me today, but guys I went to high school with, like I mentioned, and those things are really important to me. And outside of them, my home life wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at home. I wasn't happy in my marriage. And when you're not happy in your marriage, you can carry it with you. You know what I mean? If you don't have something to escape to from work and you come home and work is the best thing, a part of your week, that's a problem. Work's the best part of my week now, but it's a different best part of my week because I'm not escaping anything. I would take a business trip just to get the hell out of the house. Because it just became like you become an empty nesters overnight. So the happiness did not come from the cash. I mean, when I was spending it, it was fun. But when I had to go be a normal person, like sit down for dinner, I wasn't happy with me, and I wasn't happy with who I was sitting with, and that ultimately drives everything downhill.
So whether it's you have 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, it doesn't matter if you don't have that internal happiness.
Yep. Yeah. And it starts with you too, Samir. I mean, I was going to therapy myself because I wanted to learn why am I doing these things in life? Why am I bus wrecking here and there? And why do I do stupid things? Aside from ADHD, which I've been diagnosed with and worked in the field for about 15 years, I understood ADHD and impulse control, but there was things I did that weren't impulse related in my life that I were thought out that I still executed on, and they weren't illegal, but whatever, guys are guys. And so that's kind of stuff that was holding me back from being a better person because I had a bad side to me, and it wasn't drugs or anything. I wasn't a good person sometimes. And so I think it starts with you as an entrepreneur. Like if you're going to start a company and everyone's got skeletons or whatever. I really feel like I don't anymore, but everyone's got something in their background. You got to get past that because you have to be true to yourself before you can lead a team, because smart people will see right through that. Like if this was a facade, and I hung up the phone and I was a womanizing, wife beating, raging alcoholic, like people would see that, man, because they're investing in you. And so for any entrepreneur out there that's listening that wants to start a company, I'm not saying to start going to church and find God and all that stuff, because it's about you and finding what makes you a good person. And the other thing I found is that when I led in my past life, I led more not by fear, but more by intimidation or fear of consequences. I can honestly tell you now that I don't think anyone works for me. If they're afraid of me, then it's because they're not doing their job right. And I don't have anyone I yell. I don't think I've yelled and screamed more than a couple times in 6 years with this company. I try to be a servant leader. When we all lived in an apartment, I slept on the couch on purpose because I wanted the guys to have the lovely air mattresses and one of them to have the bed. But, it starts with you and your person. And I realized that I probably could have been a better husband if I liked who I was, but I didn't. And, the other thing too is you jump into something at 20 years old and get married right out of school, and you never had the chance to go out and be a single guy and date and go on dates and do these things, and then you start to resent the other person. So there's a lot of issues there. If you don't deal with them right away, they're going to haunt you in your career life. You can't have a wacky personal life and a screwed up personal life and be a great leader, in my opinion. I just don't think you can, because you're not being true to yourself. And honestly, man, I'm this is going to sound whatever I'm going to say because we're on podcast. I like who I am right now. I like who I am as a person. I don't lie, cheat, steal. I haven't done anything bad. You know what I mean? I screw up here and there, but I don't do any bad stuff anymore. And so I'm happy with who I am as a person. And I think people get that vibe when they're around me.
Yeah, I definitely get that vibe just from my conversations with you, and you've been like a mentor to me in our conversation. So absolutely. What's that feeling like? Was it a feeling of euphoria, like 10, 15 years, you're grinding, and then that acquisition happens? What was that feeling?
It was cool, man. I remember Bob sent me a text and he said, I just wired you a shit ton of money. Let's get to work. And I remember the feeling of wow. And I'll never forget this moment. My youngest Chris was, I guess he was like 13, 12. Yeah, he was like 12 years old at the time. And an iPhone just came out. And I asked both my boys, I said, I'm going to buy you each like one thing, like whatever you want when I get this first wire for the company. And then my youngest son said, I want I would love to have an iPhone, Dad. It would be really cool. And so I went downstairs. I was up in our bedroom. I went downstairs and I started crying in the kitchen. And I said, we did it, and I remember I kind of bent over like on the kitchen island. I'm getting goosebumps telling you this story. I'm not BSing. It was cool, man. And, I let out some tears of joy because I was like, wow, man, I did it. Holy cow. We did it. Chuck and I did it. And got in my car and went to the mall and bought my son an iPhone. We came right home. You know what I mean? I was so excited to give him something. And then, but that initial day, that feeling of the wire coming in, it was awesome. I called at the time, there was no Uber, but I was using the car service, and I called the car service and said, send a limo down here. And I got 4 other couples and jumped in a limo. And Tony Trincanello, who's now my EVP of operations, owned a restaurant in Santa Monica. And I took 5 other couples up and I spent like $2,000 on dinner and champagne. And I just kept taking friends up to his restaurant every week and just having spend a couple grand on my friends and having a party. And, it was cool, man. I did a lot of partying with the money, and not partying, buying drugs and stuff, but I traveled a lot and enjoyed it. But the feeling of being a successful entrepreneur, you go from a college dropout to, a $7 an hour warehouse guy to a salesman to starting a healthcare technology company and then selling it. The other side of that, Samir, is what they call like imposter guilt, right? Or success guilt. So I remember driving up there's like a little hill. I lived about 1.5 miles from the beach in San Clemente, and there's a Vista Hermosa, this road you drove up to go to my neighborhood. I would be driving home from work because now I had an office in Newport Beach and I had employees. It was like a whole new experience for me. I actually had like a job. I had to kind of show up and wear a suit and go to meetings. Like Chuck and I flew around the country, put a suit on, had a meeting, and then went and played golf. This was like a career kind of thing. And I never had a career. But I remember driving home from Newport one night and looking in my rearview mirror and seeing the ocean and the palm trees, and I felt guilty. I was like, I don't deserve this. I have friends that have MBAs. I have friends that have PhDs and they're doctors, and they don't make as much as me. They don't have all these things I have, and they're working 60 hours a week and they're barely paying their bills. I felt like I didn't deserve it. And it's a weird thing. It's called imposter guilt. And that's when I started going to see a therapist, because I was like, why am I miserable? I have all this money. I have a beautiful car. I have really easy kind of job. I was selling my tech, but I had like money coming in, a salary and stuff. I had career comfort, financial stability, and I just felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like, wow, man, you didn't even finish college, and how'd you? Almost like I bullshit my way to the top. You know what I mean? And I know I worked really hard. Now that I look back, I was the sole breadwinner in a household, and made hundreds of thousands of dollars every year with my own business that I wound up selling for millions. But I felt like I kind of didn't deserve it. It took me a long time to get past that. A lot of therapy, talking, understanding why I got to that point. And now I do feel like I deserve it. And I know how hard I work now. And, my job isn't necessarily, it's not physically hard at all. Traveling's, not easy, but my job now is to make sure that everyone's paid, right? My people, and that's not my job. I got to make sure that I put everyone first. I'm the last guy to get a check. Believe me, I'm the last guy to get a check. But I don't think I could have done this if I didn't get past that imposter guilt. Like I really do feel like I am who I am right now, and I'm not some big famous CEO and not anything like that. It's never been the goal here. The goal was to build a company, deliver food in an airport because a lot of people told us we couldn't. But anyway, that's always been the goal, was to be happy personally first. And I think that imposter guilt was something I got to get through. And now that I did, I'm much better for it.
That's a really unique thing. I've never actually heard of imposter's guilt, so that might be something new for the audience too. But you're right. You see these different stories, doctors versus like an NBA player. So I see, but obviously you worked really hard. Looking back at it, just your whole journey, it's amazing. So how did you go from, if you don't mind sharing with us, how did you go from millions in the bank, you had it all, to losing all that money?
Divorce. One word, divorce, man. I can get into details, but yeah, one day I was trying to buy a Subway sandwich in Houston Airport and my debit card didn't work, and there was a lot of money in that account. And that was back when you didn't get voicemails right away on your phone. And so I kind of looked at my phone, and then 11 voicemails from UBS Financial Services came up, and they were all from my brother-in-law saying, this wasn't you, but all the money's gone. So I had left a joint account with 2 names on it, and one of the names decided that was all theirs. So I had $1 to my name. And August of 2012, I was worth $1. My 401k was frozen, my IRA was frozen, and I had $1 to my name, dude. So yeah, yeah, that's how it happens.
So literally, divorce is what made you lose all the millions. It wasn't a bad investment or anything. It was divorce.
No, man. It's my. I'm just gonna say this. It's public. Who cares? My ex-wife took all the money. She was mad that I had a girlfriend, and she was mad that I was spending money that again, I thought was mine. It was ours. And showed her justification was she was afraid I was going to spend it all on my girlfriend and not pay for the family and the kids. So she just took it all. overnight one night, and I had no right to it because it was a joint account. So to those out there, don't hide money, but make sure that you have something as a nest egg for yourself in case that happens.
Wow.
So I actually wound up driving to Vegas, and I had a line of credit at a couple casinos out there, and I wound up playing cards for a few hours, made like, I don't know, I made like $6,000 playing blackjack, and I had $20,000 line of credit. So I drove back to Laguna with $26,000 in cash, and I was back in business. So, you got to use your resources, and, the casinos give you 60 days to pay back. I wouldn't recommend starting a company on casino credit, by the way, because you do have to pay them, but, gave me 60 days to, save some money. And then you don't have to pay any interest if you pay them back in 60 days. So I just sent them I sent them $20,000 back. And by the time 60 days, you can make some money if you know what you're doing in business. So I had a job, I had a salary coming in. So I just had to open a new account and start over. But I started over 8 years ago this August.
So if you don't mind me asking, did she literally take millions?
It was just under that. But the money that's frozen was over a million. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
What are you gonna do?
Would you say that, like, for a lesson, like a pro tip, because this is called The More We Know, and it's not subject to what it is. It doesn't have to just be entrepreneurship. Is the pro tip you got to really know who you're marrying?
No, the pro tip is don't be a shitty husband. I think that's the pro tip is, I probably deserved it, to be honest with you, man. So I didn't. I mean, I know I freaked out like a day or two, but I don't hold it over her head anymore. We communicate really well now, so I'm well past that. It's funny. You can make more. That was always my thing. And again, it's like anything in life. It's a challenge. At 40 years old to have $1 in the bank, it's pretty tough, man. And so that's a challenge that I took on. And I probably have $8 in the bank now, but I'm happy. You know what I mean? And one day if we ever sell this company, if something amazing happens, I think it'll be more than made up for. And I always felt like if I focused my anger on someone else, I was doing myself a disservice. It took me a couple of years to figure it out. I was pissed for a couple of years, but I don't have any ill will towards her and what she did now at all.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's such a unique story. I don't think I've ever talked to a guest with a situation like that. That's pretty unique. But I think the key is here, you don't have that ill will in your heart. Like, you're not negative about it. You're like, it happened. It is what it is. I got love for her.
Yeah, I can't. I used to be like that, man. But I really don't hate anybody now. I don't have a single person. There's people I dislike. There's people I don't want to be around. But, I removed my college coach used to talk to us about avoid the fellowship of the miserable. That was a big deal. And the fellowship of the miserable are people that are always negative. There's always something bad in their life. And I realized there were certain people I'd hang around with that I really liked, but they were super negative. And I was like, you know what? And I would be direct with them. I have a couple of friends, a teammate of mine, I'll never forget. I was down in Mexico with a teammate of mine. He came to San Diego. I took him down to Mexico. I was like, I'm covering everything. It's just two guys. We're going to have fun. And he was bitching about work for like the first day and a half. And I sat him down. I'm like, look, I'm going to go home back to San Diego and leave you here in Mexico. I said, stop. Like, you're in Mexico. You're drinking a beer outside of the bar. And he called me a month later. We had a great trip. He wound up snapping out of it. But he called me a month later. He's like, dude, I feel so much better physically. My stomach's not bothering me anymore. I'm not up all night. I'm like, yeah, just stop being miserable, dude. It's a friggin' job. Tell my dad he's stressed out about, work. He's 73 years old. He's still busting his ass. I love him. But I'm like, Dad, what are you worried about? It's a job. Just wake up tomorrow. Don't worry about anything else. And if you stress about your job, you're going to suck. Your life's going to suck. And so I just don't have any negative people in my life anymore. I really don't. I was able to either tell them you're too negative or just remove them, and that's the thing is if you can't, you gotta isolate yourself from the miserable people because they will bring you down. They just want someone else to be miserable with them. And it's no joke, man.
I kind of had a situation like that happen to me last week. I was telling someone that this podcast just hit 1,000 downloads, and I don't want to mention their name, but they said, wait, why not 10,000? And it was one of those things where people always have something to say, and you just try to distance yourself from that type of energy.
Yeah. You say, where's your podcast? Right? I mean, the answer is, what did you do? How many people know who you are, bro? So again, that's the kind of thing that you see it in your eyes. You got that killer instinct, like, yeah, watch when I get 10,000, and I'll ask for 100. Good. And then the other thing is, use that for motivation. I told you we had laptops closed in our face. People told us it's the dumbest idea. Airline people told us 5 years ago, it's the stupidest idea I've ever seen. Go do something else. You're wasting years of your lives and millions of dollars. I could have ripped into that woman. And she was the president of a major airline. I could have ripped in. I could have done a bunch of things, but all I did was I used it as motivation, right? And now I don't throw anything in her face. I got nothing but love for her because she told us we couldn't do something I felt like we could do, and now we're doing it. And so I don't do that. And I think it's somewhat business maturity and somewhat personal maturity.
Sure. That's a gem right there. And I think that's a perfect transition. I know you talked about it. It's on your shirt. I posted about it on social media, but what is At Your Gate?
It's Uber Eats in the airport, man. We have an app allows passengers, flight crews, and airport employees to order food and retail from anywhere inside the airport and have it delivered anywhere inside the airport, whether it's a passenger at their gate, an airport employee in a break room, or a flight crew on the jet bridge. And we're operating 10 airports right now. We're opening some really big ones in the next 6 weeks. We're in Newark, JFK, LaGuardia, Boston, Minneapolis, Portland, San Jose, San Diego, and then we're launching into Philadelphia on Monday this week coming up. Then we're launching Denver, Dallas, Fort Worth, Midway. Then we'll do LAX, O'Hare, Tampa, Miami, Reagan, Dulles. We got a lot of big airports out there. So we're pre-COVID, we were considered a unique and interesting company delivering food and retail in an airport. But as you've seen, outside of airports, deliveries become essential business now. And our company became essential during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, delivering food and meals to those that were unloading the planes with all the PPEs. I remember people were still working in airports, and our people were too. And, now pre-COVID, it was the message was, order food and retail, have it delivered anywhere. Now the message is, use your own device to contactlessly order and pay instead of standing in a line with people and handing cash or touching a pin pad, right? And then receive a contactless delivery anywhere inside the airport. And contactless delivery wasn't a thing in February this year. In March, it was all you heard about. We were spraying off our groceries and everyone thought they were going to die. And so this business that we have went from interesting to essential. At the same time, we had one competitor called Airport Sherpa. They went out of business. And then there's a company called Grab that does pre-order pickup in 55 airports. We partnered with them. So we're launching now our delivery service into 55 airports. And so the business has really grown. And, what's nice about it, Samir, is that it's a defensible business. Like once you sign a contract with an airport, it's our airport for 3, 5, 7 years, depending on the length. And while the contracts aren't exclusive, they're what's called binary, meaning it's us or someone else. They don't want at your gate and Jim's delivery service at a gatehold area yelling, I got 2 for $1 here and I got $10 off. It's an airport, man. It's security purposes. We have, TSA is a partner, the airport authorities are partners, the concessions are partners. There's not a lot of room for other people in this space. And so we feel that we have kind of a land grab in front of us. And, we're raising money now to open up all these new airports. And so, we've built a pretty good business from a operational standpoint. We've done over 100,000 deliveries. Our net promoter score is in the high 70s. I think it's 77. So that's a really good. So I like to say we do it often and really well. And so our goal now is to not only open these airports, but keep that culture. Our people are highly trained. They're highly skilled. This is not, no offense to Grubhub and DoorDash, but I've had some sketchy people bring me food sometimes. I mean, some of these dudes, I'm casing the house or the apartment, or I had one delivery guy who was living in his car. I had a speech I'll never forget. He goes, literally a homeless guy who lived in his car brought me my food. I was like, oh, this is nice. So our people are, background checked, fingerprinted. They have incredible hospitality skills because they're there to bring your blood pressure down a little bit, right? Travel now, people are even more anxious, right? And I flew for the first time, about 2 months ago, and I was a little anxious going to the airport where I've been living for the last 3, 4 years. And I can tell you, it's awesome. Everyone's been cooperative. I've flown a dozen times already, but there's an anticipation of travel and where's my gate? And then you get to your gatehold area. Now half the restaurants are closed in airports. So we become even more important to the restaurant operators because half them are closed. So there's less choice. There's more distance between restaurants. I was in Dallas last week and I was like, half the restaurants are closed even there and they're super busy. So, the business now it's gone from, like I said, a neat opportunity to essential service. We're rolling out a program in 2 weeks with Delta Airlines, feeding their flight crews. They removed all meals from the plane. So when you think about a pilot and a flight attendant, he or she, they're on that plane 8 to 10 hours easy. And now that there's no crew meal, no duty meal. So they either have to get off the plane and wander around an airport with a bunch of other people, which, right now in the pandemic, it's not the smartest thing to do. You'd rather stay somewhere, safe. Delta's recognized that. So they're paying us to deliver crew meals. And so we're going to do about 600 meals over 10 days in one airport with them. And that's during a pandemic. So you think about that. We're partners with Delta, American, United, Alaska in certain capacities, but that's one airline, one airport, 600 meals over 2 weeks, So I'm excited about the partnerships we have with airlines. That's how you grow your business next. But, the company has been blessed to survive this downturn. And we were lucky to get our PPP loan, which really helped us out survive the storm. But the one thing I'll tell you, Samir, about the pandemic and our business, besides becoming kind of an essential service, is there's no playbook for this as a CEO. Even Bob, my mentor and brilliant CEO, and all the people I rely on, no one knew what to do during a pandemic. My grandfather is 100.5 years old. He's still with it, and he wasn't alive for the Spanish flu, so I had no one to ask. And so the one thing we had to survive is our team, right? Each other. And so I put a call on everyone's calendar for 3 p.m. Eastern every day. March 15th, we started it. We just talked every day. How's your family, right? Anybody hear anything crazy? And then at the end of March, the concession operator started calling out your gate saying, you guys can be around. We're going to need you now more than ever. Then the airlines started calling. I'll never forget. I've been chasing United Airlines. I'm a million miler. I grew up flying Continental, which is now, United. I couldn't get a call back. United's procurement went to our website and sent a info at your gate. We want to work with you. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is airports or airlines are coming to us. And like I said, we gobbled up our competitor, and so we're the only ones in the game doing it right now. We're not going to use that to be lax at what we do. Our net promoter score is 77, and I'd like to see it at 78, then 79, then 80, right? So deliver with distinction, keep the culture the same on the ground, and I think we're going to be wildly successful. It's all about partnerships, man. Once you prove a concept out, the way to grow it is through partnerships. I don't care what kind of company you have, because a true partner helps each other, right? And so we're helping Delta feed their pilots. They're helping us build a business, right? And so any kind of partnership that you can bring to the table, you'll be way more successful than if you try to go it alone.
You are the founder and the CEO of At Your Gate. How did you come up with the idea?
Traveling all the time. I was sick of not getting what I wanted to eat, and I try to eat as healthy as I can. And so I don't want to eat a slice of pizza in the middle of the day, and I don't want to eat a burger. I wanted a salad or a bottle of water, just something to get me through. And I wound up either not having enough time to do something because it was, I got to the airport. I'm not a guy who sits at the airport for 2 hours, especially now. I leave, I got an 8 o'clock flight. I'm leaving here at 7 to get to the airport at 7:20, and I'll be at the gate at 7:30, and they're board at 7:40. I don't like to sit around, but if it was Miami, when I fly myself, I always have food waiting for me when I land. But in this case, the onus is always on not enough time. And then it went to choice, and then it went to control, right? And then it went to the concierge. Like, I like people that are going to bring me something and be nice to me. Oh my God, you're going to Salt Lake City? Are you skiing? Like, our people converse with you? And that doesn't happen a lot. Not a lot of people smile in the airport. You know what I mean, Samir? So the idea came to me because it was my problem. And again, what I'll tell, entrepreneurs at any stage in their life is that everybody has something in their daily, weekly, or monthly life that annoys them, bothers them, right? It could be anything. My pet peeve, one of my pet peeves, here's an idea for anyone listening. I hate spending 20 minutes ironing a shirt and getting in a car and putting a freaking seatbelt on, because as soon as I do that, I have a crease, and I'm like, what the? And I get it, people know, but that's a seatbelt crease. Find something to keep it at half an inch off my chest so it looks, well, you know what I mean? That silly idea, but I hated not getting food. And I commuted from Orange County to New York for 2 years before I sold the company. I was basically flying Friday night. I'd come home on a 6 p.m. flight, and I'd take the red eye Sunday back to New Jersey. So I flew twice a week, every week, and I was always hungry. And, then I'd land at 10 o'clock at night and drive home 30 minutes, and there's no food in the fridge, or everything's closed on the way home. And so I was sick of that. So I said, I want to do this myself. And, when I sold the company, I became a consultant, and the company was doing in-airport experiential marketing. So picture like brand and promo folks, like the Monster Energy people. They wanted to get, they were doing this in the airport, and they came to me and said, hey, PJ, can you bring healthcare? Can you bring like Allergan into the airport? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. And I started looking into numbers and seeing like, wow, there's 60,000 people a day going through San Diego airport. And I started looking at these numbers thinking, yeah, you know what, maybe we'll do some marketing. So we sold the program to Novartis, and they handed out Theraflu in Boston Logan Airport in February, right? And they paid us like $100,000 to do it. I handed a check for like $50,000 in the airport. And I'm like, what's this? I'm like, I just need to get some people in here. And that's when I realized how an airport operates. As chaotic as it is inside of an airport, people are only going to 2 places. They're either getting on a plane or they're going out the front door at the end of the day, right? So it's not hard to figure out that if you have enough people, you don't need that many to order to build a great business. And so, pre-COVID, and I expect it to be the same post-COVID, we were getting profitable in certain airports already. And now we've built a new model post-COVID that'll get us profitable in about 9 months in an airport. And so, there'll always be a tail with a new airport opening, but, burning a lot of cash now versus pre-COVID and post-COVID, it was almost like a financial break for our business. Like, we took a full stop and took a deep breath and looked back and said, all right, we got 10 airports. Everyone's alive. Now we're going to go forward. And so, that's been our journey heretofore. And now our 2020 is about standing up new airports, not about driving a lot of revenue, not about spending money on advertising, because you're still give or take 700 to a million people flying every day, 700,000 to a million people. We've cracked a million Sunday for the first time, which is a golf clap from me. But we'll be ready when travel does come back, and we'll have these partnerships established. I'd rather do 600 meals than 6,000 with Delta first week. Let's get the first 600 perfect and then do the rest. So we'll be primed and ready to go by beginning of 2021 when, the vaccine is available and people feel more comfortable traveling. And look, business ain't done over Zoom, man. It's not. I mean, I'm on the road now once a week because I need to be in front of people. You can see some passion and energy, but when you sit in a room with someone, they talk to them and they see, who you are as a person, that's not going to ever change. And so people will return to travel. When they do, we're going to be right there ready for them.
That's amazing. And I love that you brought up the fact that entrepreneurship, the cool thing about entrepreneurship is you're solving people's problems. So it's really cool. And I just love, you really motivated me with the fact that United, you were calling, and then finally they hit you back. So it goes to show that you never know. So have you ever heard of a company called QB, the streaming service?
Yes.
So they did a partnership with T-Mobile
or something.
QUIBI, yeah. So they're like TV shows only strictly for your phone only, and it's like 5-minute videos or whatever. So they've raised, their valuation was around $2 billion. They had some of the biggest names, executives from Disney were like the CEO and etc. But this past weekend they just they're closing down, they're shutting down because the problem is what people are seeing is, why do I need to pay a subscription to QB when those same 1-minute videos or TV shows, I can go on TikTok and I can watch the same things on TikTok for 60
Twitter.
seconds.
Yeah, you can find them on Twitter, Instagram. They're all over the place now.
Yeah. So my question for you is, how do you bulletproof or recession-proof Attrigate to avoid a situation like QB, who had the top investors, celebrity actors, and endorsements, and they still failed? So what do you do to bulletproof your business?
Well, I think it starts with the industry we're in, right? So we're in travel, and I think travel is obviously not bulletproof. So you got to start with the industry, and then I think from there, it's really the most important part of our business are the contracts with the airports because they're long term, and so that gives us the ability to operate our business for a long period of time without competition and interruption. So you get good at what you do, but for us, every airport we add is accretive to the overall valuation of the company, right? And so the way we look at our business is, if we can penetrate 5% of travelers in 5 years, we're already penetrating 1.9% of travelers pre-COVID, but we'll have a comeback. We build it and launch in 109 airports. We'll build a $200 million business, throwing off $200 million in revenue. 5X is $1 billion company, right on that. And that's been our goal. But I think our secret sauce is that we're really good at what we do. We don't have any competition right now. And we're lining up, we're signing all these airports to basically block anyone else out. And so, if anybody from Uber Eats or Grubhub is out there listening, I've got all these airports. And if you want 650 million people without chasing competitors around, call me, call us. And so I think that's us. Our biggest challenge is money. Right? Because now that we have all these airports in front of us, we got to raise money to open them, right? And so what keeps me up at night is probably what keeps every human being up at night. It's finances, right? It's whether it's personal or business or both. So that's the boogeyman for us, and I think we're doing really well. We've raised $6.5 million to date. We're raising another 10 million right now, and that's going really well. I think people are starting to write checks again. It was difficult in April and May. Thank God for the PPP loan, but people are writing checks again. We're getting some really strong investors too. Harvard Business Club guys are writing checks, which is a good sign because they're not easy. And so that's our reason. I don't think we're going to have that the Quibi kind of problem. I think that we're definitely an acquisition target. Not yet because our revenue is not there, but I think when we get there, that would be really neat. Or we take this thing public. We did the WeFunder. We had almost 700 people invest, and we didn't market it outside of WeFunder. We didn't hire a social media firm. We didn't do anything, and we raised $400,000. So the story plays out well. And look, the bottom line is for our businesses, we're not sure. We need 95 people to say no, I don't want food delivered, and we build $1 billion company. Because if 5 people say yes, it's 5%, right? So if I just get 5 people, and from a financial standpoint, our people make around $15 an hour. We charge $5 a delivery. 3 deliveries an hour, they're paying for themselves. It's not a lot. It's 1 every 20 minutes. I've done 18 in an hour. Some of our kids have done probably 30 in an hour. It's wild. But again, that's the secret sauce. And so for us, we have a defensible business, and we're going to focus on it and make sure that we are the best. I'm sure someone else is coming, man. I'm sure someone is coming, but I wouldn't enter travel right now, most people, because it's depressed right now. You know what I mean? And so for us, we have this time to get all these airports open. So when it does come back, we're ready for it.
And when I brought up the QB example, not because like a shot at Attrigate, because I love what Attrigate is doing, but it's because even when I had like with T-Mobile, they gave me a free subscription with QB and I didn't use it. Like I never saw myself using it. Whereas with Attrigate, I'm looking at it from a business perspective, a family perspective, as a pilot or as one of the attendants on the flight. I would love to be able to get to my seat, have the food delivered to me, avoid the contact, especially with COVID now. And then if
Yep.
I'm a pilot and I've been flying for 4 hours and I don't want to wait in line at McDonald's, like I want to come
Yep.
off my flight and my food is delivered there to me. It's all about that on demand, that gig service, like you said. So I think it's awesome. One thing my followers were asking when I posted about Attrigate is they said, I think it'd be really cool. So maybe you guys already do it. It was a consistent thing. Over 100 people said that if they could order as they're landing and
Yep.
have it delivered. Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as long as you have Wi-Fi connection, we set expectations ahead with the traveler that we're going to be there between 25 and 35 minutes. So we give you a 10-minute window, right? And so pilots do it all the time because they know exactly when the plane's going to be on the ground because they're driving it, right? And they're flying it. So what you can do is you can connect. You can do one of two things. You can order from the Wi-Fi on the plane, which I do. When I'll tell you a funny story about that in a second. You order from the Wi-Fi, or you can pre-order before your flight. If you know you're landing at such and such a time, just put your flight number in. Our app ties in with FlightAware and Flight Radar 24. So you just give us your flight number and we know where that plane is. Sometimes quicker than the airline itself knows where it is. And so you can pre-order in flight, or you can order 25, just give us 25 minutes notice and we'll get you food. And what I do is fun. And if you ever want to be a rock star in the plane, if anybody's listening, if you're ever flying into one of our airports, take a look at the app, see where we are. But one of the greatest joys in my life to do is to buy food for the crew. So I get on the plane, I sit in my seat, or I tell them I say, do me a favor, after you get settled, come find me. I got something cool for you. I got a surprise for you. No one ever tells a flight attendant you got a surprise for them. And then I tell them who I am. I tell them who the company is first, and I explain to them that I'm one of the founders. And then I give them my phone, and the app's open. And it's my credit card, a company credit card. I don't have any money. Say, buy yourself some food, right? You guys buy. I want to order food. So when we land in Boston, I got legal seafood waiting for the pilots. So the flight crew orders, they bring it in the cockpit. The pilots order. I've had pilots come on the mic and say, folks, that guy in 14B just bought all this crew and they clapped for me on the plane. But I feed the crew. And then guess what? When they land, my people were waiting. They got hot food. They're so psyched. And guess what they do? They take pictures with us. They post it on their internal Facebook, their internal social media. And for me, I love to do that because I love to surprise and delight people, right? It's just really cool to be able to do that. But also, I've been in 14B in a middle seat and coach and had the flight attendant come out of the first class cabin with a tray of the first class meal and put it on my lap and stick a bottle of wine in the seat back and say, you're the man. And the two people on the other side of me are like, who the hell is this guy eating a steak? You know what I mean? So they do like that. People, be nice to your flight attendants. They're not waitresses in the sky. They're there for your safety. And you'd be amazed how a simple gesture of bringing something on board for them or buying them a meal goes a long way. It really does. And again, that's our brand, is to be there for you. We're kind of cool. We're not stuffy, obviously, but it's fun to buy food for your crew too. You get treated like a king.
Yeah, I can only imagine. They're on flights all day. People are barking at them. So that's awesome that you do that. And it's a great business tool as well. The industry you're in, though, is very interesting because Six Sigma events can just happen and wipe out the airline industry for a certain period of time. You look at 9/11, crash, like no one wants to fly. You look at COVID,
Yep.
crash. But then I look at your business model, which is really interesting to me, is the fact that, let's say, God forbid, another pandemic happens, the COVID 50, and
Mhm.
people don't want to fly again. But the thing is, your business is helping those because you don't have to wait in line, you don't have to give your credit card to anyone. It's just
Yep.
it's distant. So it seems like you're hedging yourself in all these ways, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And again, we learned a lot during the pandemic about how to operate a business outside, but inside the airport, not a lot has changed. I mean, there's a lot more touchless, but it's still, you go through security, you sit at the boarding area, you get on a plane. They've proven air travel to be super, super, super safe. If there were super spreader events on planes, we would have heard about it and people wouldn't be flying. And so I think it's the reason that people, every flight I've been on has been full since I've traveled on American, right? And so with our business, first of all, there's an employee base there. JFK, there's 28,000 employees that work there every day, right? That's I can't feed that many people in a day. I couldn't feed 10% of them in a day, right? So there's always going to be something at an airport. And we've proven that our business can survive when there are no travelers because the airport employees still order from us, right? We weren't thriving. We're down 80%, but we weren't zero. No one stopped using at your gate. And then the essential nature of it, to your point, people understand, I got a family, I got my 2 kids with me. I'm going to order the food. I'm not touching a single person. They're going to put it on the chair next to me and walk away. And now we didn't interact with anybody. So, that kind of thing I think we'll be ready for. Pre-COVID, people used to ask me, what could disrupt your business? I'd say, if every major airport in the country had a ruptured runway because of an earthquake, like I never thought about pandemic, but if we survived this, and I'm knock on wood, we're still here zooming around, but I think we'll be able to be good. You know what I mean? And it's taught us a lot about our business. So I just want to be able to grow this thing and put enough money behind it. I don't want to be, and never mind, because the winners think about what they want to happen, losers think about what they don't want to happen. So I'm just going to tell you, we're going to wealth finance this company, continue to grind, continue to raise money, and continue to do what we do really well.
Awesome. I love that. I'm so happy, and I'm so, motivated and excited to see what you guys do. So in my last job, I had that, on my phone, the United Rewards and the United Club card. And with the United Club card, as you know, with Chase, I got access to the club lounge.
Yep.
What do you do in those situations? Because there are a lot of business travelers that just want to chill in the lounge, and the food is right there for them.
Yeah. So ironically, United Airlines is the first airline to reach out to us about their Polaris lounge. They've removed food. And so what they want to do is, and they haven't, we're in the throes of talking about this now, but the gist is that they want to be able to give you, right, $25. We're talking about giving you $25 in the At Your Gate app credit when you go into the lounge, because there is no food. Now, bringing food into the lounge, as you know, especially with United, is a no-no. You sneak in a bag of chips, but they don't want people sitting there eating burgers, and they don't want it smelling like a million foods. But this is a service now, and so a lot of the airlines and the private lounges, the Aspire, Escape Lounge, we're talking to all those folks about how do we help feed those folks in the club. And so again, that's an opportunity for us to either bring food into the club or promote with kiosks and ordering. We have kiosk ordering ability now inside the club and order and have it waiting at your plane. Because I'm sure you do this too, Samir. But every time I went to the club, and again I lived in Newark Airport. I would leave the club 15 minutes before boarding time and get something to eat, whether I was sitting in 1A or 36C, because I didn't know what the meal was going to be on the plane. And it's a cross-country flight. So a good old turkey sandwich and a bottle of water and some chips, that was like my safety meal. And then if something was really good, I'd have a nice meal on the plane. Now I could stay in the club till right before boarding and just grab my food and get on the plane. So the dwell time in the club increases, and that's how they can increase ad spend. So again, there's a lot of stuff we can do with the clubs, but you hit the nail on the head. There's no food. So why not have us deliver it to everybody?
If I had $1 million right now, I'd give you the check for the investment, because
everyone's listening.
Yeah, I know, right? Because that's just
really
such a perfect answer. Because that was one thing I was curious about, and everything happens for a reason. We lost our last podcast, but that's one thing I didn't ask you. I was curious about the business lounge, because that's such a big market share. American Express, Centurion lounges, Delta, Sky, all those.
Crown Room,
so so one area of opportunity I see for you guys, and maybe you guys are already thinking about this, and it's pretty cool because it's interactive on the podcast, which is unique. You don't see this on podcasts a lot. Is one reason that I use my Uber app as opposed to Lyft is because I have an Uber credit card and I have Uber rewards. So Uber keeps my loyalty there. So even with Acorns, I have an investment account with Acorns, and I get cash back on my Uber Eats that's invested into the S&P 500. So nice. Uber has me like sold, right?
Yeah, loyalty.
So but the problem is at airports, with my United Club card, I get whatever, $1 per mile or 3 mile, whatever it is. With At Your Gate, isn't there a potential there to build the loyalty rewards program so I can start getting free meals?
Yes. No, we're going to do a couple of things with that. I came from the loyalty space. As when I sold the company, it was all about like brand loyalty, customer. This time they were, we want customers loyal to our brand. And so we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to work with the airlines on you being able to use your miles to buy food in retail. So you can use 2,500 miles to get a cheeseburger. I don't know how much it's going to cost, but so you'll be able to shop with miles. And then we're going to build, now that we have our own tech in-house, we're going to build our own loyalty program as well. At Your Gate Bucks, I don't know what we're going to call it, but yes, we will be giving rewards back to the travelers for not only spending money with us, but in some markets, we might toy with healthy choices. Like the healthier you eat, the better I'll reward you. I came from healthcare, and I know that insurance companies make money by keeping people healthy, right? And so if I'm Anthem or I'm Blue Cross, I'd want to pay $5 for Samir's delivery because I want to know if Samir's eating healthy because he's an insured patient of mine, right? So there are things you can do to motivate people outside of just rewards. And so we're going to look to that. 2018 was about POC, right? Proof of concept. Will someone sit at a gatehold area, see a sign, download an app, give us their personal information, and can we deliver them food? Yes. 2019 was about growing the business, right? Now can we do it in 10 airports? Yes. First half of 2020 was, holy shit, are we going to survive physically? Are we going to be alive, right? Back half of this year is about standing up the new airports and getting staff in place, right? And so if you look at that 3-year arc here, 2021 is about growth. And we're really poised for growth now in 2021 by getting all these airports like LAX, O'Hare, Chicago, Midway. They're big airports, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver. People are going to be going through them again. Dallas, 100,000 people a day are going through Dallas right now. It's a lot of people, man. I can't feed 10% of them, right? I can't feed 10,000 people a day. So we don't need a large piece of this pie to build a big business. And I think we're in a really good position where we're just got to continue to raise money to get this thing out and grow to the place it needs to be.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool to see that growth stage. I'm excited to see what happens. And don't you think another way of rewarding people is if I'm online and I'm searching for a flight and Google's already tracking everything I'm doing, can't you get a little bonus like, hey, if you book this flight to Phoenix by whatever, you're going to get $30 of Attrogate for credit. Just something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I haven't thought of that yet. That's really cool. I mean, we're going to be integrated with Booking.com first. So when you book through Booking.com, they'll be able to know you're going in or out of one of our airports, and we'll be able to basically day of check-in, and then day of travel. I'm sorry, day before travel, like 24 hours check-in, and then day of travel reminder saying, "Hey, Samir, you're going out of O'Hare. Don't forget you have this $10 credit to book to eat, from at your gate." So again, those partnerships, we got to funnel them. We'll be integrated with Lyft as well. I know you're an Uber guy, so am I. But we're going to be integrated with Lyft. So when the passenger puts in O'Hare, as soon as the driver swipes to start it, it's going to message in the Lyft app and say, "Hey, it looks like you're going to O'Hare. You want to order any food or retail for your flight?" So that API experience, you stay in the Lyft app, but you think about all the data we're getting. Like if you called a Lyft and went to O'Hare and just take you on this 2-second journey. So I know I got Samir. He lives on Michigan Avenue at this address. He's flying to O'Hare. Then I message you. You want to order something to eat. You say yes. You order Chick-fil-A to gate 36. Well, gate 36 is going to Houston, Texas. So now I know Samir likes Chick-fil-A. He lives on Michigan Avenue. He uses Lyft. He likes Chick-fil-A. He flies American Airlines, and he's going to Houston. So then I say, "Hey, looks like you're going to Houston. Can I have 20% off your Lyft, or do you want any food waiting for you?" That's a good deal. Yeah, I'll take 20% off, and I'll take a deep dish pizza. And then we drop you off at the Marriott in Houston. Look at that journey, right? That's an end-to-end touch point from the customer journey. And then when you go back to the airport, we're going to geofence you. So as soon as you walk in, we're going to go, "Hey, what do you want to eat?" Right? And so there's a lot of data. We're going to have these tech integrations with Lyft and the ride shares. And then the big one is next week, delivery turns on the American Airlines app. So now you got 100-something thousand people a day. It'll be 600,000 people a day with travel returns. Open an app, says, "You want to order food?" Yes. "Do you want it delivered?" Yes, comes to us. So really exciting to have all these channels feeding us orders. We're even talking to Grubhub up in Chicago about how do we work together. They like airports, went to airports. Airport says, "You don't know what the hell you're doing. Go to at your gate." They came to us. We signed an NDA. And now we're working through a pilot program where we may geofence Grubhub users. So if you don't have our app on your phone, but you're a Grubhub person like I am, as soon as you walk into the airport, you can say, "Hey, Samir, looks like you're at O'Hare. You want to order Grubhub in the airport?" I don't care what they call it. As long as I get my $5, I don't care, right? So we're going to use every funnel, Shop, Dine, LAX website, the DFW.com website. All those orders are going to feed into us. So as long as the person wants delivery, their orders are going to come in, and that's how you grow a big business.
And to get that data that I like Chick-fil-A, I'm on Michigan Avenue, do you have a person that does that, or is that just coded into the app? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the data strategy is actually being built right now. Again, I came from data and healthcare, so it's pretty similar. So we'll own all the data in-house, the passenger data. And so that's all our proprietary technology. So we're actually, one of our investors is a brilliant technologist in data. He's actually helping us build out our data strategy right now. There's about 10 buckets that are going to collect all various pieces of information about travelers, because we want to ultimately be able to, right now, humans are making decisions that machines can make in the airport on an operational level. But there's also the part of learning our customer, right? The KYC, know your customer, meaning that you fly out of O'Hare all the time and you like Chick-fil-A. When you're flying into Denver, there's no Chick-fil-A, but there's a great chicken sandwich there. I want to tell you, "Hey, Samir, there's no Chick-fil-A here, buddy, but try Jim's Chicken. It's really good." And offer upsells too, right? We're talking to a major soda company right now. I won't mention which one, but a major soda manufacturer. It's one of the big two ones that came to us. Again, fascinating that a company like their size would reach out to Little at Your Gate. But they said, "How do we increase our pour in these airports? Can we sponsor this? Can we put a banner ad and say, can we offer, dollars off if they add a I said Pepsi, it's Pepsi. I gave it away. But, can we add a Pepsi to the order?" And so you think about that. There's a revenue opportunity for us just on the branding side. And then there's a major bottler that wants to be on our app because they want to sell more products. So there's so many opportunities to drive revenue. Besides the $5 we charge, we're having CPG companies now pay us $1 to put samples in the bag. to hand out to travelers. So now I'm getting $6 a bag instead of $5 a bag. That just increased our revenue by 20% because mass gatherings have disappeared as we know them, right? There's no big competitions. US Open of Surfing in Huntington Beach, Cliff Bar used to hand out 35,000 Cliff Bars over 2 days. There's no contest this year. So what do? Come to us, we'll hand them out in the airport, right? So we're not doing it with Cliff, but that's an example for the audience. We're actually doing it with Rise Brewing, coffee company out of New York. They make a fantastic product. And now imagine the surprise and delight on the traveler's end. You order Jersey Mike's, we show up at Jersey Mike's and a free coffee. All right, so there's a lot to be said about that engagement, but there's money to be made there. So then you add in from the concession operators between 5 and 15%. So all in, you get $6, $7, $8 a bag sometimes. That's a decent amount of money. And so we're going to drive revenue that way. And that's been the model here to date. And then the last thing I want to say about the revenue is we're going to hopefully have a subscription model here by the end of the year where, $19.95 a month, it's unlimited deliveries. And, you sign up 1,000 people in an airport, it's 20 grand a month coming in before you sell a cheeseburger. And then for the employees that use it our employees average use it about 3.5 times a month, our app. So it's about once a week. So at $5 delivery times 4, that's a month. You can use it more often. So and then corporate travel can sign up their travelers, return to travel safely by using At Your Gate, get a contactless delivery, blah, blah, blah. So we're excited about that.
I'm so excited. Like, it's so cool to hear what's going on. There's just so much stuff happening from the sample side to United to the lounges. This is awesome. Like this, I feel like it's going to explode, but I mean, this is just awesome. And I know you feel the same way. So let's, with that idea of explosion and moving and growth, let's talk about the investing side, because I know there's a WeFunder campaign. Before we get into that, how much have you raised year to date? If you can share.
Year to date, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but since we started the company, we raised just under $6.5 million, 6.5 million.
At what valuation?
So we raised the first $1.8 million at 7.5. Then we raised another 2 at 15. And then we raised another 1.5 at 22.5. And now we're raising another 2 at 29.5. And we're about halfway through that. So we're about $1 million into that 29.5 valuation. But the whole raise is $10 million. So we're going to raise 2 at 29.5 and then 8 north of 50. Depends on which airports are open when we close the round out. But we're going to be north of 50 million. And then what's nice about that is that's a $25,000 minimum investment that comes directly into the company, and you get preferred equity. The WeFunder campaign is the same price a share, it's like $1.45 a share, whatever it is, but that's a $100 minimum. So for anybody that wants to throw $200, $100, $500, and we raised $400,000 on that platform with 700 investors. So roughly $600 an investor, it's about $650 per average check size. But that's the only difference is that's junior preferred equity, still same class of stock. It's class below. So it's still worth the same amount of money, but in a catastrophic event, they would just be junior to the other stock position. And, we're really excited about that. It's wefunder.com/atyourgate. And you can read a bunch of information about us on there. And then literally it's so easy, just click and you can invest $100 in it.
So that is wefunder.com/atyourgate. I'll be posting the links. You'll see them on the YouTube, on the Apple podcast. The links will be here and you'll be able to find it. And you can also, PJ's a very social guy. You can always DM him, send him an email, just say hi, say you saw him on the podcast, you loved his energy and you want to invest. So I think you'll have
and not only invest
November, right?
too. In November, we close the WeFunder campaign down, or if it hits $1,070,000, we're going to push an email marketing campaign out to a couple 100,000 people in 2 weeks. See what that happens. Last time we did that, we raised 75 grand in 6 hours, which is really cool. So, and that was to 10,000 people. This list is going to be 20 times that. So we're going to try to blow this thing because we can raise up to $1,070,000 on the platform, which is nice. So
WeFunder, man, it's so powerful. I had one guy on here, Renji, who has a company called Immerse, which is VR headsets for offices. Mm-hmm. They raised $1 million in an hour on WeFunder. So
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, there's companies out there that have a more, we did put a lot of marketing muscle behind this. We just wanted to see what would happen and figured during COVID, it was hard getting to raise money. March, April, May, and no one was writing checks to startups. You know what I mean? So that was a nice backup for us to have where we had that money coming in. But they're a great platform. I would encourage, we looked at all of them, Republic, we looked at Seed Invest, we looked at these guys, WeFunder, Start Engine. And you know what? We might do another one with Start Engine. I mean, we just might run another campaign, different investors, different platforms. So, it was definitely beneficial for our business. And look, 650 people invest in the company. That's 650 new customers. They're going to use our service when they fly, right? So that's kind of cool. Yeah, and they'll share it with their friends. Look at this. So that was cool. It was a very cool experience. No complaints.
Yeah. Okay. So the question, because this is the more we know, people are trying to learn things, and you gave so many gems, so many gems. So just let us know where to send your invoice.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so question for you. So your employees, like let's say you do, let's say SoftBank invest 50 million in you guys. Are you the only one who gets diluted, or do your employees get diluted? Who gets diluted and who doesn't?
So the cap table is structured that we have a certain amount of shares issued, and everyone from our brand ambassadors to me as a CEO has stock in the company. So even our newest people, when they stay 6 months, we give them, I don't know how many, but it's like 10,000 shares. It's a nice little chunk of stock just to say like, we love you, and this, I hope this is worth $10 million one day for you. And so what we do, the reason we ratcheted up the valuation is to not dilute our investors as much. So we had a little bit of dilution in our 15 to 22.5 round. We issued because we had to issue some advisory shares to some people that helped us. You know what I mean? And so, but every time we ratchet up the valuation, there will be a little bit of dilution. But investors also have pro rata rights where they can exercise their pro rata, meaning that if they invested $100,000 and they were going to get diluted by whatever percentage, they could invest an additional like 120,000, and that would protect their dilution. So a lot of our investors, when we had our diluted round back in November, December of last year, decided, hey, I want to protect that. I'm at 2% ownership now. I'm going to be at 1.8. How much do I have to put in to stay at 2? And so it was nice to give the investor the opportunity to not be diluted. And B, it was great from a fundraising standpoint because a lot of people did protect their pro rata rights. And the other way to do it is with debt. I mean, now I would take 3 million in debt or 3 million in equity, either one. And debt, is serviceable. You could take the debt in and wipe out some early debt, kind of consolidate it into one note, have operating capital, and then give the investor that writes the debt check warrant coverage at the end and give them some protection. And then the third lever we're toying with, which is new, which is kind of cool, is we may sell airports, where I might sell each airport for 125 grand, meaning Samir, you put in 25 grand for your buddies. You got 125 grand. I'm going to sell you LAX. So you're going to own LAX. That 125 grand gets me to cash flow positive there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay you 6% interest on the loan. Plus, I'm going to give you 1% of top line revenue out of LA for 2 years. So every cheeseburger and soda we sell, you're getting a penny on every dollar. It's cool, right? And then you tell your friends, you 5 guys are whacking up, a couple grand a month out of LAX on other people's money. And so there's a lot of unique things that we can do from a fundraising standpoint. But at the end of the day, that's the hardest part of your job as a CEO. It's all you do is raise money. I've never had a day where I had enough money in the bank that I could sit around and do nothing. There's always something to do. I grew up in kitchens and cooking. My grandfather was a master chef. I used to ride with him at 4 a.m. when I was as old as I could remember working. And there's an old phrase in the kitchen: if you can lean, you can clean. Meaning, I don't want to see anybody leaning against the stove. You can lean, there's something to do. And so, my day is primarily focused on fundraising, and it's part of the journey. But I'd love to be able to put $3 million in the bank and take a deep breath and focus on the company instead of running around looking for money all the time. But again, that's part of the job, man. I was homeless for 3 months in 2017. I slept on a couch, my buddy's couch, for 3 months because I had no money and no prospects. So you just got to keep fighting through those things, and that's all.
Yeah, that's one question I want to ask you as we wrap up here, because that's something I'm very curious about, and I'm sure the audience is too. When you're an entrepreneur like this, you don't have a salary, you don't have any of that, and you have employees. How do you get paid, and how do you pay yourself during these times?
It's a sacrifice you have to make. I mean, I was making a lot of money before I started this company, and I haven't made money in the last 5.5, almost 6 years. As long as I can pay my rent and eat, I'm good. I don't own a car. I wear this pretty much 7 days a week, or a golf shirt. You know what I mean? I last week swore off suits forever. I'm not wearing a suit ever again. I don't care if I'm selling this for $500 million. I'm coming in my Vans, my jeans and a t-shirt, man. So, we pay our employees obviously first. We're not always day of. Sometimes they're very patient with us if we're a little late. Investors are fickle. Sometimes a guy, I forgot to send you a check. I'm like, I got 100 people I got to pay today, dude. So, but we make sure they get paid. There's been moments where we've had to Venmo them or, wire them the day of because we didn't get our payroll done in time, but we always pay them first. There's not an executive in this company that's ever taken a penny while other people weren't paid. That's just not how we operate. And so all my executives, David, Chris, Tony, Vince, and Steve, they are kind of on the, hey man, you're last to get paid, guys. And we've all been like that for years. And so, I literally probably have $600 in my name. That's like 3 weeks worth of money, man. I don't need it. I don't spend a lot. And so we make sure our employees get paid first. We use Augusto, which is a payroll service company. And so they get paid every 2 weeks on Friday. Most of the time, sometimes it's Monday, and again, they know what they got into. They know they weren't joining IBM. They were joining a company that goes like this a lot, but part of the fun is going like this with them. And so our employees are the most important people in my life aside my family, because they're the ones doing it every day. I mean, I watch Amy over here building a database for the app and these menus, spending hours and hours in front of the computer, and that's my girl, and she's there busting it too. So those are the most important people in our business, not the executives in the company. So we're always put ourselves last. And look, for me, it's about an exit, right? I give up, several $100,000 a year job over 5 years. Let's say I give up $3 million in earnings, but if we sell this company for a couple $100 million, I made up for it. And so that's about the risk reward for me. It was never about getting rich. This company was always about building a big, huge business. And I think for us to have a big exit at the end would be fascinating. And that's where I'm going to win and my executives are going to win. Everyone that works for me, everyone that works for this company has a piece of paper in their hand with exactly how many shares they have. There's no ambiguity. There's no concern or, oh, you said this. And that's important because I've been around people that have thought they had equity in a business, which I don't understand how you could think you have equity in a company, but, oh yeah, when he sells, he's going to take care of everybody. And that's just not how the world works. And someone builds a company themselves that sells it, they don't owe you anything. You worked for them. They paid you for your service. They're the person that stayed up all night. They're the person who didn't eat. They're the person who, couldn't go out on a Friday night and make some excuse up because he just couldn't afford to go out with his friends. And it's happened, man. And God bless my friends because they're like, you don't have any money? I got you tonight. And I was plenty of times making money when I was picking up dinner. I bought dinner for NBA friends after games. They played in the NBA. A friend played for the Knicks. I'd buy dinner because he was younger than me. That's my dude, right? So that attitude has to stay with you. If you put yourself first, you're going to be last. You're never going to win, and you can't make it into something it's not. I mean, I'm not bullshitting you, dude. Amy had to go back and live with her family in Palm Springs, and I had to move to my friend's couch in Laguna Beach because I was out of money. I couldn't support her anymore, but I wasn't quitting on this. And I finally got an airport to sign, and then we raised some more money, and I moved. With four of us lived in a 1-1. So it's never about the money for the founders. It's always about the generational wealth that we can create for our employees, our family, and our friends. That's the goal here. Generational wealth for everybody participating.
Right, because at this point, let's say you had a top level job making $300K a year, and you sacrificed $2-3 million in earnings. 5 years later, if the company sells for $1 billion, you're making 10 times that.
At least, yeah. So that's what you have to. As a CEO, you're already kind of bought into that. But what you need on your team are leaders that also buy into that. And I have a fascinating team because I have a co-founder, Chris Hartman, who I've known 25 years. We had a business together at the Jersey Shore with cranes and plush animals, in pizza joints years ago. And so he's always been more of an operational guy. He's terrific at what he does. David Henninger, our president, has 2 degrees, undergrad from Ohio State in chemical engineering, and an MBA from University of Chicago Booth School in marketing. And he's always had a career and a salary and benefits. And you stay at the Marriott, you fly American. And this guy came on the ride and he's done it. He's turned into an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? And he grinds and he knows that he's going to have to eat the same food every day for a week, and that he's going to be, we're going to be sleeping in a Motel 6 kind of thing. So, I have to have everyone buy into that culture that you're not going to do this if you're doing it for the money up front, you're never going to succeed. You got to just tell yourself, I'm going to be broke for a long time. And that doesn't always work out, and that's okay too. This will work. We've had plenty of chances for this thing to blow up, and it hasn't yet. And like I said, knock on wood, we're fighters. But you can't put the money in front of the business because you'll never succeed. Never.
$600 to your name. You had to sleep on friends' couches. People laughing at you, saying the business isn't going to make it. As an entrepreneur, don't you need a sense of craziness, a sense of I can do this regardless of what people say?
Yeah, again, believing in yourself, right? If I truly believe that we could do this, you got to be a little off your rocker. You know what I mean? This is not for the faint of heart, and this is not for the overly educated. I mean, you can be super educated, but I think I was motivated a lot out of fear out of college because I didn't have a degree. And I was always afraid that I was going to lose my job and then have to go sit in line with a bunch of people that had degrees, and they weren't going to see me. And so, I didn't choose entrepreneurship. It kind of chose me, and vice versa. I guess we kind of chose each other. I was kind of forced to be an entrepreneur because I didn't have the degree to fall back on. I don't worry about that so much now because I've had some success where I think if I, God forbid, needed a job, okay, I could probably make $1 million a year selling Lexuses at a car dealership. You know what I mean? But that's not what I wanted to. But I never worry. My dad always told me, if you could sell, you'll always eat. But yeah, you got to have a little craziness. And I definitely, people that know me know I'm a friggin' nut job. But it's part of the shtick too. It's part of people want to follow a lunatic. And they want to see. Amy and I were in a plane crash. I almost died in Africa. I had thrown off a truck at 40 miles an hour. I got that on video. So I've got to back up to be a lunatic. So people don't know I'm not just a talker. I usually do some crazy shit, and I'll send you the video of me almost dying in Africa. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Wow. That's insane. Do you know real quick who Ray Dalio is?
No.
Like the guy who's worth like 20 billion, he wrote the book Principles of Ray Dalio that a lot of entrepreneurs read.
No.
Well, anyway, just I'm thinking about you and comparing you to him, not necessarily in the same sense of 20 billion, but because he got fired at 26 from his Wall Street job, started his own hedge fund, and then 3 years later, the hedge fund went bankrupt, and he had to go beg friends and family for money. At 26, 27, I went from, he had Wall Street job, investment banking, lost it all, got laughed at, and had to beg for a little bit of money. The guy's worth 20 billion now in his hedge fund. It's one of the biggest of all time. That's what I'm saying. It's just, I feel like you said, you cannot be the faint of heart. Like I have days, I have my corporate job, thankfully, but still like in my own entrepreneurial world, I have days where you don't get motivated. You don't get a podcast guest. You don't do something in your business. You lose money. It's just, you have to have that sense of craziness and you can't be soft. And I think that comes back to what you said at the start about football, about the huddle, about even if you take an L, there's a next game to look forward to. And I think sports plays a big part of that. So I think you guys are going to be so successful, and I'm so excited to see what happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it goes back to my high school, and we talked about it in the beginning, hazard zet forward. That was the Latin phrase at my high school. That was our crest. And it means no matter what, go forward. Right. Yeah. And so I've lived by that. And the other one I live by is ordo ab chao in Latin, which means out of chaos comes order.
Yeah.
And look at the last 6 months and tell me if that doesn't ring true with our business and your personal life. So it's, it's having a singleness of purpose, driving every day forward. And then appreciate the time. It's been really fun. I really enjoyed it. Been awesome.
And PJ, it's been a pleasure. It's been awesome. And one thing I got to thank you for is I had some friends give me feedback about the podcast. And one thing they were saying, it felt too formal, like asking the questions, just formal structure. What I love about ours is literally it was just flow. It's not like we had to talk about this or that. You just kept it real. You kept the real shit, and you're blunt, you're honest, you're transparent, you're ethical. So it's awesome to hear. So I got to thank you so much for that.
No, I appreciate it. And look, for everyone who's listening, I'm extremely accessible. If you have, I've been lucky to mentor a few companies that have gotten to market. I'm actually partnering with one of them in a few airports that I help to ideate. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, my email is pj@yourgate.com. My mobile phone number is 949-257-8170. You can always shoot me a text, say, I heard you on the podcast. Can you give me 20 minutes of your time? I promise you, it might not be the same day, but I promise you I'll carve out 20, 30 minutes for you to listen to your idea. Or if you just want to hear about a company, like I enjoy meeting new people in this new COVID world has kind of changed dynamics, right? And so if anybody doesn't want to run an idea by me or just shoot the shit, I'm 100% available to talk to people. That's how I was able to get here, by people helping me. So if I can help anybody listening, I'm 100% game to do that.
Do you guys hear that? Here's a guy who sold for millions of dollars, has a bunch of employees, has raised $7 million plus, and he's offering, like, he gave you guys your cell phone number. It just goes back to the type of character and class you have. So please don't be sending him 2 a.m. texts about.
Oh, I get him. Don't worry. I love waking up to him. I get up at 3:30 every day anyway, and it's nice because usually my friends in California are sending me dumb shit at midnight, so I can text them back. They know I'm awake. And look, we're working in Australia, we're working in the UK, so my day is usually 20 hours long. So please, it's very humbling to have people reach out, and so if I can help anybody in the slightest, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you for extending that to the audience, and thank you for being an inspiration to me, myself at 23. I don't know what the heck I want to do sometimes, and sometimes I just look to you, and you've been an inspiration and motivation, and I've learned so much from this podcast. Even we've done it twice now, I've learned 10 times more now.
Awesome.
So I want to leave. I got to leave. One thing I adopted with every new guest now is, because it's called The More We Know, there's a question I want to leave you with, which is, what is something you wish you knew more about?
Right now, like just today.
Yep. That doesn't matter today or for the last year. What's something, just a topic or something that you wish you knew more about? And usually a lot of guests are just like, give me a second.
Yeah, I guess. I certainly, I'm not a know-it-all, but I'm not, there's nothing really, I guess just how to be a good partner. Like I'm always striving to learn how to be a better guy for Amy, right? A better man for her. And it's not about cooking a better meal or telling her she looks nice. It's about just being present for people. So I'm always trying to make my relationship better. And I think our relationship's perfect, by the way. It's really good. We just have a nice click together, but that's what I'm always trying to learn more about, is how to be a better partner And also, because I think it transcends to my job, right? If I'm happy home, I'm happy there. So that I'm always on a quest for knowledge when it comes to relationships. That's important to me because I failed at it in life, I guess. So I don't want to fail at this one. So I'm always trying to be better to the person I'm with because I didn't do it right the first time. So I'm trying to be a perfect partner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. It's very humbling, and that's really cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. And PJ, just thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on the More We Know podcast. Go check them out on WeFunder. You got till the end of November. Follow him, text him, shoot him an email, promote. If you like this podcast, just download the app. Do everyone a favor. Download the app. Leave a review. Do something, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks,
Appreciate
PJ.
it. Thanks for having me. Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
one.
Hey,
See you. Peace.
cool.